Hey guys, how's it going? Caprian here. So, my character was nerfed in this last patch. Man, this CI change, pretty bad for me. The IR change, not that bad for me. But I didn't get a respec, and I don't feel too cheated. I mean, let's be realistic. I have almost 8,000 ES. I'm using a staff, not because I need to, but because I don't need more ES. I could use a shield if I wanted. If I used the shield, I would have, I don't know, maybe 11,000 energy shield. Armor on CI characters isn't really an issue, despite having only evasion on my gloves and armor on my belt and nothing anywhere else. I have almost 10,000 armor just standing here. I can put my molten shell up, which I often have, to go to 14k, and I can use my granite to go to 37,371 armor, which is an 80% damage reduction, which combined with the fact that I have 6 endurance charges pretty much makes me take absolutely no damage. And even from the damage that I take, because I use molten shell with life leech and I combine it with fall pact, the damage is instantly healed if it's physically based. So yeah, the round of nerfs that happened didn't really affect my character at all. Yes, I have a little bit lower ES, yes, I have a little bit less armor, but for me, it's fairly irrelevant. The amount of survivability I have on my character is still absolutely outrageous compared to a lot of the life-based characters that I've had in my time playing Path of Exile. But what I really want to talk about today is how these nerfs impact other players, because I take a look at these patch notes and there's a lot of disappointed people who, in one case with the IR change, they were just heavily dex based characters using Iron Reflex to achieve high armor without any armor nodes, and they got nerfed a lot. Like some of them lost 1/3 of their armor. I lost like 600 or something laughable, because all of my armor comes from the fact that I get armor and evasion for free being an energy shield based character. However, the other side of things is with CI. With CI, it got nerfed. Yep. Low life didn't get nerfed, so low life is still just as overpowered as it was before, but CI got nerfed, and a lot of people playing CI, they don't have very good gear. I have some insane gear on my character. I have an 850 chest, a 500 helmet, and some pretty high-end pieces on the other slots in my gear. But a lot of people who didn't have very good chests, very good overall gear on their CI characters, they went from like 3k ES to under 3k ES, and they were fairly disappointed with the change because they didn't feel too overpowered on their character, and that is a legitimate point. But what I really want to highlight today is the fact that CI is really overpowered still. I don't think there's any way to really dispute that fact right now, especially if you've played the whole spectrum of characters, the whole variety of builds available in Path of Exile. After playing a large number, you can see that CI is really broken compared to life. But the nerfs, they impacted a lot of people that didn't have very good gear. They were just starting up as CI, and when you're just starting up as CI, it feels far from overpowered. So this is a result of CI being a decently high gear requirement kind of build. The flip side is that, you look at this chest, it has two main stats. It has a high percent ES roll and it has a high plus ES roll. It doesn't take too much to get a chest like this, maybe 20, 30 chaos. Some people get unlucky, some get very lucky with like 1 or 2, but in the end, to make a really strong life-based character, you'd actually require more necessary affixes on gear. But the fact is that life-based characters require a lot less gear to get started. This character, this Discharger, I played him as life for the first 87 levels. And the gear that I had was absolute shit. I had gear with literally a decent life roll and some kind of mediocre resist, and I didn't even really have armor at all, or I didn't really take advantage of the fact that I was life based. I just kind of made it work. And I feel that's something that's very important for people to understand. While some builds are very, very overpowered, it doesn't mean that, you should play them right away. There are some builds out there that, I can talk about today that maybe if you're struggling in the game to really make things work, there is the low life Magic Find Spork build. The totem-based builds with CI are an exception to the gear requirement of CI because they are essentially really faceable with the fact that you have something else tanking the monsters and taking all the damage for you, and when you get in any kind of trouble you can just, Alt F4, exit the game. So your life pool doesn't really matter as long as you don't die instantaneously. So that is an option if you want to go CI, making a totem-based build, something like that. And even perhaps like a summoner-based build, but that's a little more experimental. But the other builds, the other large variety of builds that a lot of people should be trying on their, fairly budget-based characters are life-based builds. Now, life-based builds, you typically have to get a lot of life nodes, so your damage is going to be pretty awful. And, it is something you have to deal with. But if you do end up going Iron Reflex, which is still really powerful, at least in my opinion, you can pretty much overcome the fact that you don't need that much armor on your gear. So you can use gear that is in very low demand, like perhaps evasion ES gear or something like that that has life on it. No one really wants that kind of stuff, and you can pretty much get whatever you want out of it. And you can combine that with using Eldritch Battery. So Eldritch Battery, you can convert your energy shield into mana. So you can use very unpopular gear to have a very powerful character by combining these two abilities. But in general, you can pick a few abilities that don't require a lot of gear. Surprisingly enough, a lot of the abilities that don't require a lot of gear to do good damage are melee abilities. And what you have to keep in mind with melee abilities is that some of them put you in a high risk, though not all of them. Cleave, for instance, or Ground Slam, or even Sweep to somewhat of a lesser extent, are abilities that use the AoE mechanics of the game, so you don't have to click directly on the target. You can shift click and auto and attack just by shift clicking without targeting, so you can make yourself very resistant to desync, and you have a decent space between the monsters and your character, depending on how much increased radius you have on these abilities. So combining, some kind of melee abilities like that with perhaps Eldritch Battery, but, probably always Iron Reflex. It's still pretty ridiculous as, starting character. You can make a character that's, going to just plow through the early parts of the game. The consequences is that characters like these are really not that powerful when you start doing, ridiculous maps in the mid to high 70s of the map pool. When you're getting to that level, monsters, they can hit for 3,000-4,000 damage a piece, and a character that's life-based, a character that, follows the rules of melee and all that stuff, it's very difficult to compete with other characters that have twice your life pool, the ability to instantly heal themselves, the ability to tank with totems, and all the stuff that comes thereafter. So that's kind of how the state of the game is right now. It's really unfortunate when people try to mimic these builds that are really powerful, but don't really have the time to play the game as much as people like me, or don't have the resources to get the gear that's required to make these builds absolutely ridiculous. But, it is Path of Exile. There's a lot of options out there. You can essentially still do whatever you want, and, that's something that you guys should never forget, because Path of Exile, even if you're doing the cleave action, even if you're doing the summoner action, it's still going to be a great game. And I'm sure you guys can tell by the fact of, I'm making a life-based summoner on the weak race. I don't even have Iron Reflex, and it's still working pretty well. It's still plowing the maps pretty well, and it's still a lot of fun. So, hopefully you guys enjoy that, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.